Okay, welcome to week one of Gate of Heaven. We have a list of questions that we're going to discuss based on the summary of the topic, and then we'll have some conversations. And my suggestion is to stay emotionally honest about what you really feel about the conversation. The books have some incredible truths, and it's kind of cool if you're already at the place where you can understand and agree emotionally with the truths being taught. But you're better off being honest with where you're at so that you can then let the emotions get triggered and then be able to receive the truth. And that's basically what happened to me in the last book discussion. I couldn't even read the chapter to start with, and by the end, I was able to read the chapter. So, got there. Took all kind of emotional processing, and now I can sit and read a chapter at a time and understand it at the first read. So I didn't have very high bars. It was all I wanted to understand. Why is this book so difficult to read? So it was an incredible journey. So, and we also have lots of spirits also around us to come and listen and learn. So a lot of our discussions are going to be guided by spirits as well as our spirit guides. Could also be guiding us to ask or to contemplate certain responses. You know, some of the ideas we share could be guided, could be inspired, so that everyone could benefit. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so chapter one. Anyone has any opinions about the overall what the chapter is about? Where Afra is finally having some quiet time, he's meditating and thinking about how overwhelmed he is with everything he's been experiencing, and then his mom shows up to ask him a question. How did that go for everyone? Comment, Karen?
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting chapter. I thought, like the first bit, I felt he was really saying he can't answer these questions that people, like that readers have been sending in, because he really wants to address this being born again. And I feel like that was his real setting the tone of the book, that's what the tone of the book was going to be about, how to be born again. And then he kind of goes into this meditation, and Fayon comes and asks the question, and I feel like it was all about her having this awakening, like where she'd been quite stuck, and then in that there was all these other kind of lessons in it about how important it is to teach truthfully, and he has all those different experiences that happen to him. So yeah, I thought there was a lot of interesting things in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that the theme of the book got started there with the concept of born again. And also, when we finished the second book, Afra had realized that Vaughn had, God had helped Vaughn to prepare a home for him when he passes away. But now he is the one that's going to help her progress further. And here you can see it beginning where she feels inspired and disturbed and agitated, and she could reach out to him. And that he had his first kind of like that amazing experience of his awakening also through her. When he had to answer a question and he couldn't go to mining to get the answer, then that stimulated a very incredible experience. Selena?
I really liked it that she felt blocked, that she felt because she had just been told what to do her whole life.
Yes.
And always had someone in authority. And actually, to me, it felt like there's a little anger in there. Yes. She felt like she was having this feeling like, am I going to get dumped out of here because I'm having this not nice feeling? Yes. I'm feeling restless. And I just thought it was really neat. Like she just kind of really quickly went through an emotional process.
Yes, that's right.
And I just thought it was just really cool. I really liked it. Yeah. She went, and also him too. It's sort of like they were on both sides of the same page, him having to work through the suppression of his father in his way of probably not being any kind of strong male.
Yeah.
So where I really got that was reading the mediumship that Mary was doing on him, like that they actually thought he was crazy.
Um,
when you're at like crazy, like he wasn't just weird, he was actually considered, like Jesus says it a couple times, like crazy, like you were not well received at all.
yeah.
So I would think that that would have, like, it's just like a great feeling for him. Suddenly he was somebody
Yes.
that could say some truth, and made him feel really, that must have been an awesome feeling for him.
Has to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get to that part of that
Yeah.
experience for sure. Okay, so let's move on to the first outline, page 10. Our first says, God has in his mind but one purpose concerning the whole family of men, to love him with an everlasting love, with loving kindness, to draw him back again to the inheritance he has forsaken through the machinations of sin. And then there's a quote from Jesus, come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. How do you feel about that statement? What are the feelings you get? And you can see my little tantrum right there on how I feel about that statement. So what are your feelings about that? Do you feel relieved? Do you feel faith? Do you feel, Alicia?
First of all, let me preempt this with, I came in to join you guys a little late, so I'm not as prepared as I would like to be. And in this little bit, I felt some remorse about why the hell didn't I know about this before?
Right.
Why did nobody tell me, and why did I not wake up? Why am I so bad that I couldn't even be aware of this? And another part was, without getting through everything, but another part was that just the word rest was like, oh, that would be so great to have a little rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let go. Aware of what do you mean when you say, why wasn't I aware of this? Aware that God has
aware that God even existed. I wasn't even aware that God existed for majority of my life.
Yeah. Okay.
And well, you know, I was aware of some in a new agey way, but not really that I could have a relationship, and that this beautiful being is right there for me, although I've only glimpsed that in a teeny way. But yeah, I feel a little bit like, oh, why haven't I been aware of that before?
Okay. Thank you. Michaela?
Hi. If my internet's not great, so you might not be able to hear me properly. Hopefully it's okay.
Okay.
I found with this one, like, I've just had the most insane 2 weeks of my life, and I really had to learn to trust God. And in doing that, I really understood that there's so much more to it that we don't understand and we don't see. So this quote just really inspired me to open up to that there's so much that we don't know, and to develop more faith in God. But to get to that point, I really had to go through this sense of how much I don't trust God, and how much I feel like he doesn't help us and he's not here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's really important to connect to that. To that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we got to start with where we really are at. Like, how actively do you feel God is involved in helping you come back to claiming your inheritance? Kind of like, you know, how do you feel? Can you feel that God has a plan and that God is actively involved in making that happen for you? Karen?
Yeah, kind of a couple of mixed feelings maybe with this one. I feel like I did have quite a beautiful feeling about it. I just thought that God, that's his one purpose. Like, his purpose is to love us and to have us come back to him, and that gave me a lot of faith. And maybe a little bit similar to what Michaela was saying, I then started to feel, well, I don't really understand yet how everything is designed. Every single
Yeah.
thing is designed for that purpose. And, sometimes when I'm rebelling and thinking things are unfair or things should be done differently or something, I don't feel that. And so it kind of made me stop and think about it and kind of go, well, every single thing is developed is for that. Like every plant, every tree, every law, everything. Like, and
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing. Like I feel that's pretty
If you
like that he's just gone to that effort for like so he can love us. That's pretty incredible. I think.
if you decide to kind of let yourself investigate and go, is that it? This could be true that everything is designed for helping us to experience His love. Then, if you start to go, I like to see that in action. I like to see how everything is for that purpose. It'll blow your mind. It'll probably be like overwhelming for you to see the evidence that is there. So yeah, it does start with the desire. For, like Karen, you're kind of like stopping and going, okay, God really loves us. Let me think about that. Let me think about like that. See it as a practical thing that's happening to me all the time. Like with that desire, you'll probably start to see it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, probably be very, very overwhelming. And yeah, it would create a lot of trust. Like what Michaela is saying, you will then start to trust God and start to have faith. Once you see that that is so, you will trust it. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. Other comments about that? Okay. So let's. Oh, Pat, go ahead. You mute. There.
Hi, everyone. I sort of had a different feeling with this because I want to be honest. So I don't know if I'm deceiving myself or not, but this weekend I had a big event happen, and I used this Bible phrase, which normally I'm very judgmental about the Bible because I just find this never resonated with me. So I took the time to look at this verse, and what I found was I found it really loving when I went into it. I felt when it said, "Come to me," I actually thought that was God talking, not Jesus, but I guess it's God talking to Jesus. And I just thought it was a really nice, sort of like an invitation to come to God. And it wasn't like a big demand or like an unloving parent saying, "Get over here." It was, "Come to me." And I just felt a lot of love. And the other part of it was when it says all ye, all, the all part was all inclusive. So it includes everybody. Like you could be a sinner or a saint or rich or poor or black or white, and it included everyone. And I thought that was pretty cool. But the coolest part was I thought, oh, it means me too, because I thought I usually think God loves everybody but me. So I thought, oh, he's not excluding me. So I thought that was really loving. The other part was about labor and heavy laden was God sees everything. So God sees our pain and suffering. So I thought, wow, God knows that we are in pain and suffering. And I just thought that was cool that he knows it. He has compassion for us. And if we want the help, we can ask for it.
Yeah.
And but I'll give you rest. I kind of took that as permission just to surrender and just to let go of fighting and resisting and
Right.
just trying so hard. So
Yeah.
I just sat with that and felt, okay, I'm just going to do nothing. And I also prayed, and thank you, Karen, for the prayer that you gave me about asking God to love me the way I am. And I used that and felt about the verse, and a lot of emotion came up, and I just felt that was really, really loving. It was the first time I actually felt love and support. So I don't know if I'm deceiving myself, but that's how I felt about the verse.
Yeah. Okay. So it looks like when you're able to sit back and take it literally, like kind of go, what if I choose to believe this for real? This is practical, this is daily, this is all the time. What would that open me up to? Then looks like you're having experiences. You're actually opening up and feeling something entering you. But of course, it helps if you're already emotionally rolled up. Something's already going on and you're all riled up, and that sure creates the opening. So, wow. But then when you're in an emotional moment, you have to invite God's perspective to enter you in that moment. You have to remember to invite that. So, good on you. Good on you for passionately chasing it down. That's a choice. Okay, Jill?
There we go. Sorry, wasn't unmuting for me. In my exploration of self-punishment, I actually had a false belief that God was very punishing. And so this whole chapter was inviting, I think is probably the proper word, to actually open myself up to God and open myself to the fact that God is not what I believe he is or she is, and that opened it up. I think there was one, and hopefully I'm not stepping on anything. There was one sentence towards the end of the chapter where Ephra said, what you do, or I'm paraphrasing, but what you do will not jeopardize your relationship with God. It will just delay it.
Yeah.
And that was like all sorts of light bulbs went off, and I'm like, wait a minute, doesn't matter what I do, I will eventually still have, or I will eventually have a relationship with God. It'll just might be a little further down the line, but it was like, oh, it was just a light bulb. Like, it was just like, oh, okay, I can actually trust this being. I can open myself up, like, all right, God, let's see what you got, kind of thing. And it felt really good.
Okay. Well, this is Afra's mood in this chapter, is he's reflecting and he's inviting truth, he's inviting a conversation, he's trusting, he's open. So it looks like we're also through osmosis kind of borrowing the same attitude, like we're kind of getting into that zone that he was in that point. Kind of a nice influence. It's influencing us to invite the same, yeah, okay. Hi, Virginia. So sorry. When I booked those Zoom sessions, I was quite sick and there's been so many mix-ups. Sorry. I made
No worries. I just kept getting told she's in another meeting. And it's like, no.
But yeah, I may resend the right link to all of you afterwards so that we're all, on the right page. Okay, moving on. Point 2, Vaughn is my paraphrase, she had always been loyal and unquestioning of what she's learned. So her feeling agitated that this way was a break from a usual character. So Afra was feeling like this is a very important moment. And he wanted to answer it without losing the opportunity. And he was also in this point reflecting on how important it is to be a teacher. So, because he realized at that point what's happening is he's being asked to teach. And he's been like a puppy following all these teachers going, oh my God, you're so cool. And it's like, oh wait, it's now my turn? This isn't feeling so cool, this is scary. So it was kind of cool to see that reflection happening. So what are your thoughts on teachers and the responsibility they carry, as well as the mistakes they end up making when they teach untruth? What are your feelings about? Because we can say, well, I'd rather not teach because, I may end up teaching wrong and end up also then you're kind of being passive and not doing anything. So that's not the best outcome either. But what are your feelings about teachers and being a teacher yourself if you have a passion for it. Alicia?
This is a biggie for me because I've been teaching for so many years, and since learning about divine truth, I first became very sick, which obviously stopped me teaching, and then even coming back into that, I've really like pulled myself back because I can feel I'm afraid of teaching the wrong thing and then getting punished and then all the rest of it. So it feels like, it's a huge responsibility, and I'm much more aware, but still getting lots of signs of don't push out there, just wait till the moment comes to you rather than going out there for something.
Okay, so you're getting guidance about it.
Yeah, but I can still feel that I've definitely come up not feeling good enough, basically. I mean, apart from lots of other things, but so I think you mentioned about that dichotomy of it feeling like a desire, but also feeling that there's an addiction around it. Like I'll see somebody hobbling in the street and I immediately want to go and ask them about it, talk to them about it. And I have to try and stop myself because it's not necessarily something I'm meant to be doing. Anyway, I'm like in a bit of a quandary still about it.
Absolutely.
I'm doing it, but I'm relatively doing it in a very small way now because I'm aware of that.
So it's like a journey of discovering, how do I teach in harmony with God's laws? How can I express the gift of teaching?
Yeah, and it always felt to me, I can feel that it always felt to me anyway as if it was not just me. I always felt like it wasn't just me. It was like, oh, okay, I'm meant to. And I never even seemingly needed to prepare that much. It was like I just knew. But now I'm much more aware of who's actually influencing that and what's in me that's attracting that. And anyway, so.
Yeah, if you could, there's an anxiety there for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you can kind of pull that anxiety more and engage it deliberately so you can process your emotions around it. Instead of constantly trying to negotiate with the anxiety, address the anxiety.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's sort of where I'm personally going into realizing there's I know this seems strange, but it somehow feels connected with more facets of forgiving my mother, who was a teacher, by the way, and going into my fears around it.
Well, you're in the anxiety right now, even as you talk about it. That's what I'm trying to point it out to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Take a look about that. Selena.
I just realized this last week that one of the best ways that I have of learning, which would indicate the teaching is good, is being asked the right questions, being asked the questions that make me ask myself the questions. Because when I ask myself the questions, because I've been motivated by somebody else to ask the questions, that's when I really learn. And that's when I really get some good answers. But I find being around somebody like you who asks the questions, I really get somewhere. Yeah, thank you for that.
It's fun. I love coming up with questions.
You're good at it. So you are.
I love it. So it's cool that I'm good, but I love it. It's kind of cool when you connect to your gift and you're going, I really like it. Hope I'm good. We'll see.
Yeah, like I don't even know how much a person really has to teach if they're really good at coming up with the questions, because then the teaching is just intrinsic to that, you know?
Yeah. But when you're asking a question, then you're open to your guides answering. So that way a good teacher can just step back and let the guides engage.
Yeah, like even if you ask me a question, that happens, right? Like your guides, my guides, everybody gets engaged, right? It's the asking. It's cool. Yeah.
Thank you. Karen?
A few different feelings about this. I feel yeah, that teaching, it does carry quite a big responsibility with it. And I feel like that's what I was trying to caution
Yeah.
people with, especially with spiritual matters, who said that carries more weight to it. And I feel like that's because, like how I was saying earlier, like God's wish is for all of his children, like for him to love all of his children, to have a relationship with all of his children. And if you teach spiritual untruths, you're preventing that. And I feel that's why it has a greater weight to it. If you teach people that are preventing them having their own relationship with God, that's going to accrue more compensation than if you taught, like, I don't know, if you taught someone how to play tennis and you taught them the wrong rules, not much is going to happen there. But if you teach people, that God's a very punishing God and things like that, that's going to hinder their relationship with God. And I feel, just personally, I feel I can only teach somebody something I've personally experienced, something that I've gone through. And probably in the past, I've tried to just recite things that I've heard or read or things like that I haven't personally experienced. And so I feel that's part of the teaching, is stopping and going, well, what have I experienced? What can I share? And kind of what Celine was saying, like, does the person want to know? When the person's asking, that's when they're open then to the teaching, rather than trying to just teach people who aren't even like don't want to know or something. But yeah, myself, I don't feel a strong desire to teach. That's not something that I currently feel.
We could be teaching in many different ways. We could be one good way that I enjoy in my work is to show what it's like for me to go through the process. When I'm processing blocks to fear, when I'm processing blocks to whatever, then you're sharing what it was like to go through that process. I think that can give a lot of clue to people. So that's a way of. But I used to teach Abraham Hicks's work, which is the positive kind of stuff. And I was in a hot seat. I've attended a few of the seminars. So I used to teach Abraham Hicks and then go, well, I taught the wrong thing. That was wrong. I taught people to suppress negative emotion.
And I think it's
so
it's harder to correct that.
Say again?
Isn't it? It's harder to correct that. It's harder to correct spiritual things, because then, kind of like if you look at the church, it's gone on and on for generations. So it's not just one person you haven't tried to correct. It's like, it's very difficult.
And my children are very traumatized by my teaching Hicks work to them. To them, they're traumatized. They will not learn anything, listen to me about anything ever. They're done because of how traumatized they felt about how my pushing the ideas about Hicks. So no, I've done the wrong things. So I've been on the other end too. Probably still paying the penalty. So yeah, it's an interesting one to explore for sure. And Judith?
Yeah, when I think of this, it's not just teaching, it's just speaking up, like when you come across a situation where, something comes up and you want to say something, but you don't, that involves God's truth.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I've spoken up in the past, it's not turned out good. Yeah. So I know that it's been an addiction, but recently I did have an experience where at least I told somebody something. I pointed her to videos and whatnot. She had cancer, but she had specifically asked for prayers and help.
Right.
So I just said, well, I'm going to put it out there because I'm going to regret if I don't.
Right.
Because the information's there, and if you don't share it, what good is it? So.
Yeah, that's an ongoing kind of like a juggling the balls of like, where do I sit in this? Do I wait till I'm asked? Even when I'm asked, what do I say? What's it going to be like? How do I share? Like, that's an ongoing, like, keep engaging the conflict. And then I think over time you start to sort it out.
Right. And then there's also things that are current events, like with what the Pope said recently. Right. I don't know if you heard about same gendered, it's a sin.
Yeah.
And that gets me a bit upset because I know that he's someone that obviously prays. And it's like, where's he getting his information from? You know, why is there so much resistance there?
Yeah.
And so it's a little disappointing.
And again, yeah, I can't even, I'm the last person to say anything about that. No background in Christianity, so you can't even say anything. But again, how much penalty is he carrying for teaching untruth? Like, yeah, it's a huge responsibility. So yeah, that's a lot to work out there. Thank you. Michaela?
I found this I felt really powerless reading this, because it's like you're talking about the Pope, the teachers on the earth are so corrupt,
Yeah.
yet it feels so hard to connect to God and to connect to our guides. So it just feels quite hopeless to
Yeah.
really be getting the real information that we need.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well, once you process the emotion that it feels hard, then it will not be hard. You got to work through that emotion. So you got to release that. That's what it feels like. Those are the blocks that has to be released. Yeah, thank you. Virginia?
I feel very drawn to teaching.
Yeah.
And the part that's I found the most difficult is that you feel so vulnerable in it, because it is important, and you do realize what you're teaching if you're doing it incorrectly.
Yeah.
Or getting the wrong information. But with what Farrar did, he got a little bit as like going into his own experience.
Yeah.
And this is the vulnerable part. You're talking about yourself and your own experiences. And once you do that, though, that tends to draw people, because that is your experience, and they can see when you're being sincere about it. But it's also very vulnerable.
Yeah.
But it can be a good way of teaching, of just sharing that.
That's right. You'll
Of
definitely
what
share a lot
you've
of-
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're just getting, sometimes like I'm finding it's my listening part as well, because to me it just comes as a knowing, not like words. I don't hear words, but it's so gentle and so soft that it's hard for me to take it in sometimes, and I'm still learning to trust it. I'm thinking, oh, was that just me? Was that just in my head? No. You know what I mean? Like it just, and once you go with it, then you get a little bit more information, and it just keeps opening up. I find once I let it be that way, and then it does feel right, and it feels like I do feel like I'm trusting it, and it is the correct information.
That's right.
But it's a learning process in itself. Like everyone's saying, you are learning as you are also teaching, but there really has to be a willingness to be vulnerable.
Yes, exactly.
And that I find really hard to do.
And being willing to experiment, and maybe even realizing that maybe you had some good, well-meaning spirits who gave you some truth, but they don't really know it. They don't know all of it. Or they're not on divine truth path, or like it's okay to go along, to realize that that wasn't the best channeling, and that's okay too. Didn't mean that you made a mistake or you weren't sincere enough or anything. It's just part of the journey of experimenting. So something that I would trust 2-3 years ago, I will not trust now, but it got me along some journeys. Yeah, always be willing to be wrong and feel all the feelings that comes along with it. Okay, so moving on to the next point of discussion, point 3. So Vaughn asked, what was it exactly? What did she say? She said, are you happy with heaven, or something like that? What was the exact phrase? I didn't write that down. Something like, is heaven everything you expected it to be? Something like that. That's what she asked. So Afra is like, what? How do I answer this one? So he did what he usually does, which is like, might need help. It's something I usually like to do. So, but Meinen gave him an, I guess, intuitive answer. Tell her in your own way what you have seen and heard. So basically, he's saying share your experience. But then, and then, Afra had an experience of some kind of something illuminated, something happened to him, something went across his consciousness. And in that one flash, he had a couple of insights all at once. So he felt and saw the headless system of domination, social and spiritual, under which Vaughn had been controlling her life. And the real nature of the enfranchisement secured by the Ministry of the Magnetic Chorale, which was discussed in Book 1, Chapter 6. And then the discovery of some new faculty in himself, which seems to break down all limitations that he's had in the past and impart a power of comprehension under the influence of which he boldly faced the duty to which he was called, which was to teach. So what do you feel happened to Afrar? How did he invite this experience? What was the desire that drove it? And why did this experience awaken a new faculty in him? Basically, I'm going, what happened? What did he do? What did he do? How did he do it? How do we do it? We want it. I want it. So that's basically what I was doing with that question. So who wants to start? Karen?
Yeah, I don't know if I fully understand exactly what happened here, but my feeling about what happened is that his desire was to give Bayon the truth. He wanted to truth, and he was aware of like what would happen if he didn't. He saw that this was kind of the first time that she had really questioned anything. She was kind of just normally just going with the flow, and this was an important juncture that if he did not give the correct answer, she could then stay stuck in this space she was. So I feel like he had a sincere desire to help her. He had a sincere desire for truth. He was willing to ask for somebody else that he felt could answer it better. So he was being kind of humble. And in that, I feel like it was God then that just, this ray came from God that then just gave him all this information that, so then he could see that how her life on earth had made her, she was so, it sounds like she was just following religion and was quite, and so then when she's arrived, I feel like what the magnetic coral reference is to, like that's kind of been removed from her, the compensation. She's received kind of positive compensation in that she's been taught some untruth on earth and she's diligently followed it. And then once she's arrived in the spirit world, that's been removed from her. And she's then, I don't know how long it is, but she's found herself in the second sphere and everything just seems lovely. And he can kind of see through God with this dart of illumination all the circumstances that would make her think that and ask the question. And then he's in this position where he's able to explain things that he couldn't really, in a way that he couldn't explain it before. And I feel like it's our desire, I feel like any of us could probably do that if we had a really sincere desire to give the person the truth and be humble that we don't know it and asking for help to impart that.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Jill?
I don't think I could improve on what Karen said, but it almost sounded like a type of prayer to me that, you know, first Afrar asked for help and my Hanny said, no, you can handle this all on your own. You're good to go. And then that's where it kind of felt like he asked for
more help.
And that's where that prayer that type of prayer kind of came in. That's how I kind of felt. And then like Karen said that, you know, it was that answered by God, and you know, he was humble to feel it and to be able to express it.
Yeah. Okay. Others? Selena? You mute.
I just have a question. Does anybody understand the headless system of domination? Why? I don't know why he described it that way. Anybody, any ideas on that? A headless system. Just kind of struck me as an odd thing to say.
Alicia and Karen both have ideas about that. Alicia?
Oh,
go ahead.
good.
Oh, you mute. Alicia?
In my book, it says heartless,
Oh, heartless.
not headless.
Oh, did I write headless?
Yes, I was curious about that.
Oh boy. Okay, my bad. Yep. Okay, so it's heartless. Okay, that's better. Does that help too? Is that better? Okay. Okay. Watch out, teacher. Editing. Oh gosh. Okay. Thank you. Alicia, did you have comments about?
I mean, what Jill and Karen shared was really great, and it's almost like it felt like, what's that saying? Where two or more are gathered, there I shall be. It felt like she had a desire to know, and he had a willingness to want to help and asked, and it's like that sort of connected everything, and then it's like, oh, and now that can come in.
Yes. Okay. Now, why did that? Why did that awaken a new faculty in him? Why did he feel like, oh, what is this thing I have inside of me? What is that? What happened there? Jill.
I almost feel like it was proof. Like he had the desire to be able to help Vionne, and she had the desire to listen to him, but he didn't think that he had the capacity to be able to do it.
Yes.
And it was almost like, no, you have the capacity, here you go. Express it. Like it was almost like proof. I don't know what other word to use, but that kind of, it was, and his realization that that all the questioning, all the time that he has spent with Nehani, I think I'm saying that right, and everyone else, and he's gotten all of this information, all the questions that he's asked, he kind of realized that, oh, I maybe I do have the answer, and I can actually help. I can help her, yeah. and not harm.
Yeah.
And that it was kind of almost a realization. So it was like he proved it to himself.
Okay. I feel like I was wondering if, because of all of his journey and his passion and desire, I wonder if he was receiving some kind of a compensation, a positive compensation, where God awoken a gift he has, because it's time for him to receive and express that gift. It's like we have many gifts in our soul, and then somewhere along the line, something gets awakened. I wonder if it's like a compensation, kind of like a progression, that you're progressing, and now this other parts of your soul can be awakened. I wonder if that's what was going on as well.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean by proof. But yeah. Thank you for expressing that for me.
Thank you. Okay. Selena.
Excuse me. I was actually kind of surprised that he apologized at first because of her strong reaction to his answer. Right. Excuse me.
Yes.
Because I thought it was perfect. Because I thought her response was the perfect response. It was exactly what she needed to feel.
Yes.
She needed to feel something, and she felt it, and then he kind of backed up a little bit And then she was okay. But I thought that just because he'd felt the same way with mining when he would trigger him, like he knows what that feels like, but he was a little bit taken aback when it happened to him. But that's part of the teaching is you're going to trigger,
Trigger people,
like you're going to. And I was just kind of surprised he apologized, even though he explained it more fully. But I thought her response was perfect because it showed her anger and her fears, and it was perfect. So it was a perfect answer and a perfect response.
Well,
that's what I thought.
He's got new wings. He's got to find his feet under him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Alicia. I was going to joke and say, he's being Canadian.
On the same lines, it feels like an opportunity arose. He chose to take it.
Yeah.
He was therefore given responsibility.
Yeah, okay. He did choose to go, I got to find a way to respond. But then you also start to wonder, knowing Mainin, who was probably feeling God's feelings of it's time for him to start awakening those faculty in himself. And so when he didn't get Mainin's help, he then obviously in his humility asked for God's help. So then God has the opportunity to then give the answer and awaken his faculty, a gift in him as well. I feel like kind of all came together all in a nanosecond. So yeah, for sure. Thank you. Karen.
Yeah, I feel like it was more that he got himself into the condition that God could do that through him, because there's this part later in the chapter where he says something had been left behind and evolved from that mysterious ray of illumination. I received at the outset of her inquiry a guiding impulse that had carried me forward, furnishing me with all I said and using me to speak of things I had never considered nor dreamed of before, with an assurance as foreign to myself as was the role of teacher I had been constrained to assume. So I feel like he got himself into a condition where God could actually use him to teach, almost like his role, like he's teaching through his own experience, like that's him getting himself into the condition and having the desire and humility. And then that's like a faculty, which I feel is a gift from God, not so much compensation, but a gift that's been given that you can then just receive all of that from God and have God use you almost to, help you speak the truth.
I wonder if we carry a lot of incredible gifts in our soul that we're going to spend infinity discovering, and if at different points of time God awakens them, because our condition, like I said, we progress to such an extent. But then you have to have a desire to want to serve the gift, and that's what he wanted to. He was put in a situation where the desire got evoked, and he chose to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. So. He wanted truth. He had a sincere desire to ask for truth. He was willing to ask, and then God gave him information. I feel like definitely, as Karen had said, that's the sequence. Definitely, I think it's the way we can access those types of abilities. And it's really cool that as God answered through him, God also increased Afra's comprehension. It's not like Afra was explaining something he had already understood. He was getting the understanding through the answering, which is probably why in the other book, in the second book, all the spirit guides would always thank the person they helped. Thank you. You just helped me grow. And we were like, what are you talking about? And now I'm going, oh, that must be what's happening. Every time we have a desire, we want new information, our guides are now receiving a comprehension that's increasing their own understanding at the same time as they're helping us. So that must be why usually our guides are thanking us for the opportunity for them to grow, which is a really beautiful system. Like it's like win, 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 win. It's got all in one go. It's kind of efficient. Michael.
I learned how to use the raise my hand button on this process. I've been clapping all the time, That's why my hand goes away.
I'm thinking Michael is really appreciating all his comments we're having today. So you were raising your hand?
I was raising my hand, yeah. I thought, oh, I must be attracting this. She's not calling on me. I had the wrong signal.
Michael is so techy. Look at him using all his emojis.
Yeah. But
Thank you.
so I want to take a stab at this. It's not something I've experienced.
Yeah.
But it's softened me as I've thought about it. I feel like Veon created a condition by her desire. And then Ephrar didn't feel capable, and he felt the responsibility of trying to give an important answer to someone that he cared about. And he asked for help. And so he was showing some humility there.
Yeah.
And I think he got a connection with Mayanin. Maybe Mayanin, gave it, maybe that there was some love that was exchanged between them, some confidence or something. But I think it opened some part of his soul, and he was able to, it let him speak his truth without really tainting it with a lot of emotion. I felt like a personal emotion, that he was able to teach the way the master would.
Yeah. Okay. Do you feel that he received inspiration from God? The flash of illumination that happened to him?
I don't know.
Okay.
It was all I could do to hold on to my answer. I can't think of that.
Thank you. Well, what I also liked in the way Ephrar was describing his thought process, he was actually owning all his emotions. He was feeling like, oh, I feel unsure. I don't want to make a mistake. How do I do this properly? This is a lot of responsibility. I felt like he was being humble to his own emotions. He was kind of owning all of his own emotions, and that then kept him present in his soul to then allow something more to happen. So that's definitely part of the process as well. Yeah, thank you, Michael. Definitely, the humility is a big part here, isn't it? He asked for help, and if when the person he asked for help from saying you can do this, he then asked for bigger help, and that asking, I think, allowed for. I feel like that was God who gave the illumination. But Michael, I think, do you feel like overwhelmed by the idea that God can speak to you like that?
No, I don't. I feel like it activated some sort of law that God has that enabled something to happen. I don't feel like it was a personal intervention by God.
Okay. Okay. What if it was? What about that idea? How would you feel about that?
Well, it was so I think that if it were coming from God, it would be like huge, but
Yes.
it was just within the capacity for within Ephrar's personal capacity to do the best he could.
Yeah.
It didn't. I'm reluctant to embrace that possibility.
It's like, Michael, what if someday you realize, looking back at your life, that God was talking to you many times in a day? You just didn't know it was God. All these inspirations that you were getting, ideas, nudges. What if it was God is a lot more involved than you believe?
Can I not answer that?
Yes. There's something there. Okay, Michaela, go ahead.
Is that what you believe, Mila? Sorry.
Yeah. What do you mean, that God is a lot more involved?
Yeah.
With inspiration, yeah. Definitely. Yep. Now that I'm constantly asking for God's feelings on a lot of issues and receiving answers that could be from God, it could be from our guides, I'm beginning to go, wait a minute, this is very familiar. Hey, wait a minute, have you been talking to me all this while and I didn't know it? So, I get all iffy. My first reaction is always anger. But I'm beginning to wonder now. I'm beginning to go, how much are you really talking to us anyway? Is there more going on than I can see? So I'm beginning to, it's like I'm getting a little suspicious here in this way. So I'm kind of beginning to investigate. Yeah. But I think it's very overwhelming for us to recognize it. So that's why it's quite an overwhelming idea. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so moving on to the next outline, number 4. Vaughn said, there was this conversation where Afra was saying to Vaughn that you can't know about heaven because we're not yet in heaven, something like that. So Vaughn said, do you mean that we have not yet reached heaven but are in an intermediate state? So, which then brought a strong reaction out of her. So why do Vaughn and most people that get second sphere believe they are in heaven? Why is the second to the seventh sphere not seen as heaven? Which means that, once you become at one with God, then you're in heaven. That's your second birth. You're born again. And it's just my own reflection of for me, it will be kind of heaven. Why is Afra so particular about this definition that this preparatory stage is not heaven? Though for me, it'll feel like, whew, incredible. Second sphere on, holy smoke, this is incredible. But why is Afra so particular that is not heaven? It's just the preparatory stage. Jill.
I've just been sort of rewatching the Development of Your Soul series with Jesus and Mary, and the way that Jesus explains it is that spheres 1 to 7 are our playground. This is where we learn. This is where we grow. This is where we do whatever we need to do, our rest, our healing, our repentance, our forgiveness, everything that we need to do.
Yeah.
This is where we need to do it.
Okay.
And we can't get to 8 without being here first.
Okay.
So we have to be able to play in our playground, and then go from there.
Okay. Okay. Which video series are you talking about?
I have to find it here. Give me one moment, and I will answer that for you directly. You can go on. I'll find it for you.
Karen, go ahead.
I feel he's being so particular about it because of what we were kind of speaking about earlier, that some people get to the second sphere and do think it's so different from the earth experience. So it's such a difference that they think it's heaven, but it's nowhere near heaven. It's because we've devolved and we've started in the 6th sphere. And he's being very particular about it because he's saying he doesn't want people to get complacent and just caught up in stay in the 2nd sphere or the 5th sphere or the 6th sphere. That really it's God's wish for us all to become at one with God. And whenever we're not at one with God, there's something, there would be some unloving things in our soul often before the 6th sphere, but then we're missing out on this relationship with God. And so it's trying to propel us forward. So I think he's being very specific that this is not heaven. There's more to go. And so she doesn't, because she's been very stuck in this place, and doesn't have much of a desire to get out of it. So I feel like he's trying to motivate her a little bit to that there is a heaven.
The environment is beautiful, but we still have some sin in our soul. Even if it's the 7th, it's still you're sinning against God by not wanting God's love.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Good point. Thank you. Michael, you unhand your head. Now I'm more confused.
I was agreeing with Karen. I feel like he didn't want to support Vayon's complacency and be sure that she knew there was a lot more ahead of her.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Selena?
Well, what that made me think of was that when you know, when you're one with God, that's also when you know absolutely that your soul is infinite, because you don't really know it until you get to there, and that's heaven. That feeling is heaven. So your surroundings up to then are all really nice, and they keep improving and they keep showing you that you're progressing, but that feeling is heaven.
The immortality.
Truly.
Yeah.
It's not about your surroundings, it's the feeling. Yeah.
Got it. Ooh, I like that idea. Thank you. Okay. Jill has put the YouTube link here, but what year is that from, Jill?
It's 2016.
Okay.
It's the God's Gifts to Developing My Loving Self. I didn't know if everybody
Okay,
wanted it, so I
Please
can put
do.
it in the chat for everybody if they want.
Okay. From the assistance group, just for the recording.
Yeah.
Will
Yeah.
be for in the recording. So is the assistance group 2016 Developing My Loving Self? I think that's the first one, isn't it? At 1.1 assistant group 2, or is that 2.1? Okay, thank you. Okay, Michael.
Selena said something about that when you get into, say, the eighth sphere or at the one-man stage, you realize your soul is infinite. Is that what you said? Is that what you meant to say? Because I don't, that's not what I understood.
It's
So I was
immortality.
just double checking.
Right?
What?
Is it immortality, right?
You can never die again, but you know, only God has an infinite soul. So, but I have no idea what the feeling is there.
Yeah. I think it's immortality. That's the feeling you get once you become at one with God. So yeah, thank you for correcting that. I kind of like understood what Selena meant, but didn't correct the
Yeah, immortality, like you know that you cannot die, and you
Right.
don't really know that until you're at one with God, and that's heaven. That feeling.
Yeah, but I didn't catch the word going, oh, but the word is incorrect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so the last point I brought up was the discussion about how, a leprous soul cannot be transferred to the front rank of the saints just by receiving an extreme unction or a prayer that is scarcely finished before the flesh is discarded. Like you can't just boom have you be immediately transformed to a good condition, but that we do find law, order, beauty, forethought, and an adapted ministry suitable to every possible demand which the ravages of sin and rebellion have created. So and also after I use the phrase of the robing room. You know how when you enter a home, there is a hallway where you put stuff away, there's a closet, the hallway, put away your coat and shoes and stuff, and then you enter the house. So basically he's saying, the sphere 1 to 7 is the robing room, is a hallway into the main entrance of the house. And that you wouldn't imagine to walk into someone's house and just not have that intermediary place where you take off shoes and jackets and stuff like that. So why does it take time and effort for our transformation and for removal of sin? And I didn't realize what tantrums I was having, why I couldn't come up with more questions. So I'm just tantruming that I'm going to have to go through that whole phrase. So I'm just mad. I'm mad that I feel I know what. And for some reason I'm mad about it. And then I'm going to have to correct all my sin. So I'm just in a big tantrum. But why does it take time to remove sins? Why does it take time? Like for us, after I went from second sphere to 8 in 30 years? Like that's fast. So why does it take so much time? I'm just tantruming, but please talk to me. Pat? 'Cause, 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 'cause,
I feel it just takes a lot of time because to remove sin, it's an emotional process. So you have to have a emotional process to remove the error.
Yeah.
And you also have to have emotional process to receive truth. And just from my experience from doing emotional work, it's taken me forever and I thought nowhere. So I can imagine 6 or 7 spheres to get up there.
Yeah.
I feel it would take a long time because it says also that you need to feel it and see it and know it. And to do that, you need to do emotional work.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
That's a good point, actually. I mean, look at how resistant we are to emotions. We've learned to be resistant to emotion, and so we're in this mess. So that's what makes sense why it would take so much time. Why it takes me so much time. Maybe that's what I'm really tantruming about. Thank you. Okay. Karen?
I feel there's a few things, like there's a few reasons why it takes so much time. I feel one that I feel like a law is that things do gradually change. There is nothing that just instantly changes. And I feel like on Earth we have an injury where we want things instantly. We've kind of created a society where we can get things pretty instantly, and we've been promised these instant changes and things like that. But I don't feel that's how God's designed it. It's designed to be more gradual. And I feel that's maybe for a few reasons. One, like if I could just like sin and tell a lie and then that could just be corrected instantly, is there much incentive for me then to not just lie and keep correcting it easily? So the more difficult, I feel like the bigger the sin, the more compensation is accrued and the more difficult it is to work through it. So it's part of the learning process. So you would never do it again. Like, so the feeling is you would never want to do that. And so I feel it takes time to remove the sins, and then also at the same time, God's teaching us to grow our desire. So that helps us progress. So we've got to learn that process. And that's not something that's just instantly given to us. We have to develop it. And I feel like God's trying to get us to this point where, because the higher spheres, you just have a simple thought and you'll create it. So you have to go through this process. So you're removing just even the intention, the thought, to purify all of that. So you're able to inhabit these higher spheres.
Where you are having instantaneous fulfillment of all your desires. You better be only asking good.
Better be. You better not have a single, because you could create chaos if you were having some,
and
unloving.
Also the importance of why a desire is so important, like the understanding of how powerful desires are and why you really need to become very, very passionate and have very, very strong desires. I can see that that's definitely an important lesson plan that needs to happen. Okay, thank you. Okay, wow, there's some really good understandings here. Judith.
And that was phenomenal, Karen.
Yeah.
That was really, I just realized it's like most people don't even know they're sinning. Like we kind of understand it a bit, we're learning, but the majority of people on earth don't even know it. And let alone do they have a desire to even fix what they don't know is wrong, And I don't know how that works in the spirit world. Like what triggers you in the spirit world to deal with your injuries, Like we have the law of attraction here on earth, things that happen to us. You go to the grocery store, you're driving and someone cuts you off and things like that. But how does that work in the spirit world?
Well, by the time you cross that line, which is, I think, a conversation happening here in these chapters, no, it was in chapter 6 of that chapter 6 of the magnetic coral. But once you pass, then justice kicks in. You go to the place that you have earned. Like that is if you're not earthbound. So I think that's how that happens. That by the time you pass, you've now that time of mercy where you had time to figure it out while you were still alive. That time is now done. Now justice kicks in, and so you start to experience the penalty you've earned, and you're beginning to see what you've done, because it's like what we learn, you keep passing before your eyes. Everything you've done keeps going in front of you until you paid it all off, which is on your learning process. I think that's what happened. Karen, am I correct?
Yeah, I think were you talking about that spirit, was it Nero or somebody that was in that really hellish,
Yeah.
like in the hells, and he was just constantly being, there was a list of every sin he had to.
You see it passing before. I've heard that phrase many times. You'll keep passing before your eyes. You'll keep seeing what you've done when, where, and then you start to feel about why. So yeah. Unless you're earthbound, and then even then, at some point you get tired of the rebellion and you're going, get me out of here. And now again, it will kick in. You'll start to, the justice kicks in, I guess. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Alicia? Actually, sorry, can you hold on Michaela first? It was Michaela who had raised her hand first.
Just on that note, like even if you're earthbound, one thing that really struck me in the Life Elysian is that the pain that they still feel every time they engage with the sin. Yeah. With this, what I was thinking is that, like everyone said, we're in a deep state of resistance. Plus, the web of our sins is really vast and is just building on top of each other. So there's a whole process to go through. And we have to develop the desire to even want to. And I feel that developing the desire is kind of incremental, and we develop enough desire to then receive faith in relation to that desire, which then propels us to develop a bigger desire to receive more faith. And it just feels like it's a spiraling up process.
Yeah. And that takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you. Okay. Alicia.
Well, woven into what everybody else has shared, well, it's taken a long time for it all to build up in the first place, like ancestrally and globally. It's taken a long time to build to what it is now, and it's like everything that if I just know something straight away, I have never really integrated it all.
Okay.
And it's almost like opening doors. The more I realize there is to realize. The more desire I have, the more I realize, oh, I could have more.
Yeah.
So it's like, as Michaela just said, it's incremental in, oh, wow, there's even more. Oh, it's like either, oh, wow, or, oh, my God, so much.
Okay, so we are kind of coming back to free will and desire. We have free will and we need to grow our desire, and that desire drives the journey, and it takes time for all of that to happen.
Yeah, and the desire just to even wake up to anything and to stop avoiding pain at all costs. And I guess as soon as we pass over into the spirit world, we are in greater sensitivity, aren't we? So we're perhaps more likely to go, oh, this is not good.
Yeah, the penalty kicks in and it's very, very painful. True. Thank you, Alicia. Yeah, that's definitely getting some ideas here. Michael.
Along the same lines as everyone, I think there's something that God wants to achieve in all of us, and he doesn't want any of us to be shortchanged. And this process just takes time. It's just like a fact. If we didn't have the blocks we had and the beliefs, we would possibly speed through it.
Yes.
Even Jesus in the first century took, I don't know, almost 30 years or however long it took him to make it.
And he had no sin.
Right. And we have all this to overcome, but it's just like Michaela was saying, it's God's process, God's design, and that's just how long it takes.
And what you're suggesting there, Michael, which I like, is that that God wants every step done well. Every step has to be done properly and well, and you can't skip a step. And that God wants.
Right. Yeah. Everybody that gets to the gate of heaven and passes through has the same qualifications. Nobody is shortchanged. Nobody came about it through an easy way. It's all honestly earned. and genuine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Selena.
And I'm thinking, is it really that long? It's just long because it's painful.
Yeah.
But when you think Jesus took 2,000 years to do the next 28, and I'm sure loved every minute of it,
Yeah.
even though it was way slower. I'm sure there's way more to learn, way more to do. It's just long because it hurts.
Because it hurts. I like that. Thank you. Exactly. It feels
Yeah.
long because it hurts. And it hurts because we've earned it.
Now, I don't really feel like my burden still feels pretty darn heavy, and I'm kind of getting sick of it, to tell you the truth. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it hasn't even been that long.
Good point.
Yeah.
So I'm tantruming because I'm resistant to emotion, and it hurts and I'm tantruming that it hurts. Got it. Now that I know what I'm tantruming about, I can go do it on purpose and really get it out of the way. Tantrums are so helpful. So helpful. When you can engage your tantrum, really go into it, boy, you can work through stuff full on. So, okay. This has been a really good start to our months and months of journeying together.